Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have a Vechain video for you guys today, VET on the exchange. This is actually one of my favorite projects here on the Whales of Wall Street, something I've been holding personally roughly around 2019, 2020, and it's been in my portfolio ever since, and I've been accumulating ever since. We've got a load of cool introduction videos to this particular project and technology. So do check those out. We'll leave those at the end of this video, but we've got a couple of really interesting topics to go through with Vechain's developments over the last couple of weeks. Guys, before we do that, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. If you wouldn't mind kindly hitting the like button as well just below. It massively helps the channel reach newer audiences and keeps the momentum going to educate more people than ever before in crypto, DeFi and blockchain. So guys, let's go into this one. This is very interesting. We talked about many times on the channel with a multitude of different projects and technology integration partners that are out there around the benefits of blockchain being utilized in the healthcare system. Now, of course, we spoke recently with Pradi, for example, at Self-Care, which is very heavily orientated into the full integrations of the healthcare system right now. But there's loads of applications of healthcare, which becomes really interesting. So for me personally, when I read about this, literally came out in the articles sort of the last 24 hours, it got me thinking even further down the line about this, because there's a lot of aspects of things like IoT and artificial intelligence interactions with healthcare. My thoughts and theories, just for a bit of context, for the last few years have been very much around the fact that, like, you know, very soon we'll probably have like chips inside us. They'll be heavily linked with our DNA structure, with our health structure. At the moment, we're in a bit of a stepping stone approach. We've got a lot of like wearables that you can put onto your wrists, etc., to accommodate things like heartbeats, metabolism, etc. But with a chipset in the near future, we'll have the ability to, for example, just go, oh, Simon, you're going to have a heart attack in 2 weeks' time based on the algorithm of your heart and this, that, and the other, and your nutrition, blah, blah, blah. Remain still. And then an automation of healthcare services comes, whether it's drone deliveries of medication, or a automated transportation mechanism taking you to your medical facility, all these kind of things. I mean, that's a bit further down the line, but it's definitely something that's been talked about a lot at the moment and developed as a technology and a solution. But right now, we talk about these wearables, and this is quite interesting. So I don't know how it's pronounced, but I'm going to go with Vyvo or Vyvo. This is a smart chain, and it's the first heartbeat-based health data purpose chain. And I like this. It's very interesting. There's some really strange statistics here and information. Do you own your data? Now, that topic's very interesting at the moment because we've got huge laws and bills going through over in the EU, the European Union. We're having similar here in the UK and pretty much across the world right now for data law, data bills, especially from the digitalization format. And this is heavily orientated with the introductions of more and more artificial intelligence than ever before, the implementation of IoT. This is Internet of Things, so devices, pretty much appliances as well, that connect to the internet, whether it's a smartphone, washing machine, whatever. And how is our data accumulated? How is it sold to other parties? And at the moment, we don't really get any value out of that, other than probably some nonsense adverts that we see on our smartphones. Every time we put our phone on or go on YouTube or something, we've been speaking about something during the day, and hey presto, there's an advert, and we're all like, hang on a minute, I didn't want this, but you probably signed for it in the terms and conditions of the smartphone updates here and there. And it is in the small print and pretty much most social media platforms, etc. Anyway, so that aside, I think a lot of it's become more natural and kind of, gone from people going, hang on a minute, I'm angry, and to like, oh, this is just normal now, like we do with everything else because we're human, and pretty useless with kind of standing our ground. But the point being is here, in majority of cases, our data, even health data specifically, and other modules of data from within us, and physical factors, external factors, get sold to other companies. We never have traceability of that. And that's really interesting from the blockchain perspective to see full transparency of that, but also for us, not just prosumers when we talk about like the energy sector and things like that, but prosumers in ourselves, actually selling ourselves data-wise to these companies and getting rewarded for that. But this is really interesting, and from a health perspective, this could be really, really fascinating developments in the healthcare system, because again, relating to that kind of, albeit maybe not a chipset, let's just talk about it from a wearables perspective, for example, is trigger points of potential heart attacks or other health conditions based on heartbeats or metabolism, etc., weight loss, and so on and so forth. This is really interesting. 1 billion wearable devices produce an average of 5 gigabytes of health data per person every day. I can believe that. I didn't even consider health aspects as data in regards to a size of something, a data size or a physical data. You could say, you could read on a piece of paper, well, this person's heartbeat is XYZ, but not actually understand that in a contributable factor, calculated factor of like computing, for example, or quantum, becomes something quite from a substance perspective. It's very interesting. So this link up here is utilizing the Vechain blockchain technology, which we know heavily relating to the things like the traceability aspect, hence why it's so heavily involved in the smart chain management systems and development in those side of areas with the use of QR codes, NFC, etc. And this is where it gets really interesting, not just from being able to potentially predict your health future, or at least create some formality to lead a healthier life, but also to revert back to this point about data and that cost of data. It's absolutely staggering, these numbers, to take back control of your data. And this kind of gives you like the market value. I'm not talking about market caps or anything about Vechain or this particular smart chain. I'm talking about when we look at use cases of whether it be a blockchain or a crypto technology or project, I want to know personally like what I'm investing in from a technical perspective, but also I want to understand the market that it's within. And it branches off into so many things, Vechain, but this one in particular is absolutely huge. So where it says here, $1 trillion, the digital health market, $1 trillion by 2030. By 2026, 273 billion in big data industry in general, and wearable tech market, which we know has always been growing anyway, 118 billion by 2028. Now, these aren't directly involved with Vechain's application, but when you look at the actual technical information and the data that's driven from these, and then you need the verification, the processing, the storing, the privacy, the security, all of those things, and then even the transaction perspective, when we talk about that AI pipeline down the line of, you need medication, or you need a drone delivery, or you're getting picked up by the ambulance or whatever, they're all transactions. And this is where it really defines that transaction per second momentum with whatever chain you're looking at. And of course, the interoperable aspects of Vechain is very powerful, cross-chain, etc. It becomes a really interesting piece to the puzzle. And these are absolutely huge numbers. So what's really interesting, we've got the native coin, the VSC. I think there's another token involved with this as well via that Vyvo chain. I think it's in here somewhere. But yeah, we'll go with VSC for now. Again, building and integrating with the likes of the Vechain technology and the Vechain chain, as it were, is really staggering. And I love this part, the real world adoption. I always say that when blockchain and crypto is successful, and I mean really successful, like fully integrated, it will be the day that we don't talk about it as a development aspect or integration aspect. It's just there. It just works. So for us as end users, we're not really that interested in smart contracts, how IoT works, or how does blockchain work. We just want to know, if I put this on my wrist, can I make money out of it, and where does my data go? And I see that, and it just happens. So this is really exciting perspective, in the sense that when we look at the price points of Vechain in a second, we start building our picture in our heads that, okay, Vechain looks in all these different directions. It has this ecosystem building, which is absolutely huge. But it's about that real world adoption, and that's where the money really comes in, guys. I always believe like between 2025 and 2030 will be significant adoption, mass awareness, not just the cryptocurrency in general, or necessarily how it works, but the actual adoption, the actual usage of all of this. And it becomes very fascinating. This trustless data terminology is very interesting as well. I think there's a lot of other chains that we follow and cover project-wise, like IOTA, for example. This is very heavily involved in digital identity. Again, another big buzzword there, digital identity. What does that mean? It's the integration of everything about us, whether it be documentation or healthcare records, our biometrics, our history of payments, everything all comes together. And that's why it gets really exciting in my mind as an investor to sit there and go, wow, okay, Vechain's capabilities were huge, but now we're starting to see some really cool ecosystem development and utility and adoption. And that's where it gets really exciting as an investor further down the line, as that price point rises, as more Vechain and VeThor is needed to power this network, this ability of the whole entire ecosystem. And on the back of that conversation, guys, really quickly before we go into the chart, talk again on the channel quite a lot about the physicality of tokenization. A lot of people call it PNFT, physical NFTs, but again, we need to start moving over the next couple of years away from the terms of NFTs and all of these kind of words, and really focus in on like what's the actual end goal here. But I'm not going to go into giant detail about this because we do cover physical NFTs a lot, but you can envision this is relating to anything: houses, cars, even tickets, sporting events, pieces of art, you name it. Anything that's a physical asset can be tokenized and digitalized in terms of transparency, processing, the buying and selling of it, the availability of that asset, whether it be fractionalized or as a whole asset, is really interesting. But it's quite cool where they use this. So they call it, I'm going to say Phygital, which is really interesting. I've not heard this one before. So again, it's just another one thrown in the mix. But when you pull it apart, you basically talk very, very much strategically about the implementation of physical assets. So again, this is a very interesting relation here. So Vechain's set to lead a $1 billion phygital industry with superior tech and seamless accessibility to other blockchains and beyond. So again, this is another article that came out in the last 24 hours or so, and it's again really interesting development. It's not new as such, because a lot of projects and companies are already talking about this and doing this, and I have no doubt in my mind that Vechain have been doing this for some time as well, but it looks like they're really defining themselves. I think when I first got into Vechain, it was very heavily orientated around the supply chain areas predominantly, but as the years have gone by, it's really identified the other strategic areas it can go down. But rather than just scattergun approach of doing everything, being the jack of all trades, master of none, as it were, they're really solidifying their professionalism and their ability in all of these different areas. So again, another really interesting point when you're thinking and talking about investment of assets, whether in the stock market or crypto. I want to know what it is and how is it benefiting or creating a solution for the world. And Vechain's right up there. I don't know how many of you out there are holding or investing in Vechain. Please do leave in the comments below your positions with Vechain. Maybe you're new to it. If you are, go check out the intro video or other video channels covering this particular interesting project as well. But I'm going to wrap up, guys. This is really interesting. When we reverted back to our conversation earlier about artificial intelligence and IoT, Vechain and SingularityNet, so this was 4 or 5 days ago, have teamed up on AI to fight climate change. And I love this topic, guys. I've spoken about this so many times, about the integration of artificial intelligence and blockchain in the energy sectors or climate sectors, especially with the narrative now of ESG going worldwide, dominant terminology, certainly at least for the next 7 years specifically, as we lead to those 2030 target goals under the UN programs and World Economic Forum programs. But what's interesting to me, real recap on that point, is from the climate perspective, the agricultural perspective, everything that we do will be really enhanced by blockchain. The reduction of cost, the reduction of resource, manufacturing, processing, supply and demand, no wastage or reduction in wastage at least, all being interlaced with AI algorithms based on our supply and demand data, what we do and don't do, transportation, everything being interlaced. together. So when I start seeing these kind of partnerships, so AGIX is the token for SingularityNet. Again, a project I've been holding probably since 2020 and been accumulating as and when I can. I absolutely love seeing stuff like this because I truly believe that the way fully that crypto and blockchain will work is that interoperable aspect, but collaboration. And I was speaking to someone about this the other day. I find it quite interesting that this is one of the very few sectors or industries in the world where there's not too much competition. I know they compete with each other from the technical aspects, but I feel like there's always a massive openness to collaborate and make things better for an end goal. Of course, they want to both make money and progress, but I feel like there's an ultimate goal within most people that are in blockchain and crypto that really want to define something and create a massive solution for the world. And sometimes that means coming together, but still operating individually, but doing something collectively. And I think this is a great example of that. So just left that topic there, guys, because I thought that was a really massive opportunity of, again, development, progression in the space, and ultimately real world utilization. On that topic, guys, let's go into the chart. So Vechain currently floating roughly around 1.5 cents. In our last Vechain video, it wasn't too far off either. We marked up a few positions of interest. One of those has definitively come in, which is great for me personally. As I reiterated in a previous video, I'm not majorly fussed between 1.5 cents and 1 cent or 2 cents. But in the grand scheme of accumulation, it of course becomes quite important if you're accumulating big numbers or you're doing day trading, etc. So I'll leave that strategy and thought process to you. But for me personally, it's neither here nor there. Obviously, I want to accumulate as much as I can at the lower price points as possible. So Vechain at the moment, currently on the RSI is the bottom left here, 35 on the 14-day, 28 days showing 39. This is a great buy point for me personally. It confirms what I see visually on the charts as well. And if I just scale this chart back like we did in the previous video, it's still in the area of interest to me. And that's pretty much between that 2 cent mark and the 1.5 cent mark. Why did I draw that out? Well, one, it's a good price point, but two, from a data position, with the exception of the massive uprise that we saw in 2021 with the bull cycle, these areas have been relatively untested still. So we've actually can still count probably on one hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of interest. And that some of these particular drilled down areas are over like 1 or 2 months. But the point being is that these data points are not in massive fruition. So we've got an opportunity here to really start confirming these support areas, but to do so, we have to keep dropping back down to this area, on occasion dropping below that to then come back up, and that's where we define the support level or a resistance level for us to go, okay, confirmation here that there's a bit more stability, confidence, and then we see the uprise, which we're in a bear market, a winter market. Most markets are, or asset charts are a little like this, big huge black gaps here, particularly with the bull cycle, and that's very important to understand because we always had to come back down anyway, and we're defining these positions again. So we're getting these buy orders in, personally, me, on manual accumulations, DCAing in at these areas, and I still have my buy orders just below, or well, I've got one slightly above at like 1.1 cent, and I got one at like 0.097. I think I've got those numbers right. I think, and that's where I've got my positions of buying. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy to be doing that. If we look in the grand scheme of things, guys, I mean, the opportunity is huge. Taking it from these current rough price points here, if I get my price range chart up, so we take it from this existing opportunity that we've got roughly around here. I think it's like 1.5, right? It's roughly about here. And we just take it up to the previous all-time high all the way up here around about 27 cents, 27.9 cents. That's a massive 1,718% roughly gain opportunity from its current price point. And if you remember the previous videos, we also drew opportunities up the top levels of where we would see some volatility and potential testing. Again, to reiterate that point in particular, is that in the next bull cycle, I would at least anticipate a minimum of us hitting to around 47 cents. That's taking it to 2,800% from its current price point today. And arguably, if utility continues, adoption continues, utilization continues, development continues, I would anticipate potentially Vechain hitting towards that 70 cents to $1 mark, in honesty. And that's to say by 2030, it could be even higher, but that's a staggering amount of opportunity. But to scale it back, if we were to be conservative and say, okay, our first target point for sell-off, at least for me personally, yes, of course, I might do some at around 10 cents, 15 cents, but particularly around that sort of 30-cent mark at the all-time high, where you will see a lot of volatility and a lot of testing going on, and it will test people's emotions, I'm sure, at that time. It's still staggering. So it's a great opportunity. The other confirmation we have a good accumulation opportunity is the performance indicators on the right hand side here. So they're all in red. Obviously the year to date is quite strong actually, to be at that lower level of negativity. So it's not massively hugely underperforming, but what I would say is it's a good stability factor. Yes, it will possibly come down still lower price point wise, maybe down to that 1 cent mark, but the point being is that there's a massive reduced risk to an extent overall, because we're hitting the bottom lines already. The numbers performance wise aren't in huge negatives, and it's been slowly stabilizing itself, which means there's quite a lot of holders, obviously, stakers, whether that's getting the V4 token or whatever. But the point being here is that there's a lot of power behind this, a lot of holders, a lot of money, liquidity, for us to be stabilizing ourselves. And that gives me confidence as an investor to be like, okay, yeah, it might come down a bit lower. The risk is not too high, and there's more upside than there is downside, particularly on the short-term trading aspect. When we look at the RSIs at the bottom left, that right now, if you are a weekly or a monthly trader, is shouting out to me, in my opinion. Not financial advice, but just my thoughts and observations. So that kind of wraps that up, guys. As I said, just to really identify that this is a really key area for me personally, based on historic data and where we can go into the future. Vechain's got a massive opportunity, future of development, technological advancements. It's really exciting, and I implore you, if you haven't seen it before, to check out any introduction videos, not necessarily mine, but other channels as well, to get a real good flavor of this and start understanding, not just with Vechain, but other assets as well, where your money is actually going into, like what are they actually doing, and really start identifying whether it's personally or like the world's identifying aspect of the utility. That's where it gets really important as an investor, guys. Thank you for watching this Vechain video. We'll see you in the next update video. Take care and bye-bye.